This is Joyce, the voice of Joyce, episode 29. This is about who will write our history. We can be in lockdown for a temporary time, but we've got to overcome obstacles that are afflicting probably half the nation. What am I talking about? It's the ideology, folks. It's all about the Republican ideology. Deny, deny, deny. It's liberty lets me do whatever I want without consequences. But we know that's not true. The consequences of denying the facts and denying the science for an ideology have cost us 81,000 lives and counting, plus 36 million people out of work. It's up to us whether this is going to be a temporary furlough for many, or whether or not COVID-19 is going to be with us for a long time. The Republican ideology is fueling the flames of COVID. How is it doing that? It believes in small government when we need government that is ready to bail out people like they've done in the European nations. Most people who work for a living in Europe didn't lose a great percentage of their income. They're still being paid at 80 to 90% of the levels that they had. Industry is responsible for the employees' welfare. We didn't have to let everyone go and reward only the top 1 or to perhaps 20%. But this government is an oligarchy. It believes in power and influence. That's why it believes in small government. It doesn't include you and me, not even a little. It doesn't even think about us. Now that the second stimulus is up for review, you don't see many folks in Congress rushing to pass a second stimulus. The first one was on the backs of the $1.5 trillion tax cut. The next one of $2.2 trillion went mostly to major corporations on the exchange. So few people in the middle and lower classes received the stimulus that they wanted. In New Jersey, I understand that $600 benefit that people were supposed to get, that hasn't arrived yet. Governor Murphy has to find out why not. In states that have opened prematurely in the Midwest and the West, they're seeing a rise in COVID infections. They're just not counting them. The governors don't want to know the statistics. They don't want to know how many infections are in their state. They don't want to know how many have died. And they don't want to know who's out of work. Why? Because then they'd have to think about the consequences of their actions. And this is not an ideology that thinks about consequences. It only thinks about belief. A belief in small government, a belief in tariffs, a belief in isolationism, a belief in deregulation. Doesn't believe in the needs of we the people. We're not the ones who influence them. However, at least half of the people in this nation believe in the concept of the old Republican Party. They too believe in small government, not realizing it doesn't work in their favor. They too believe that they should have the liberty to congregate when and where they want, not realizing that it's not people making the new laws. It is people making the new laws based on an unknown enemy that none of us have ever seen before. This pathogen has never been seen by man. We know it came from a bat. We don't know who the host was that transferred it to man, but now we've all been affected around the globe. And unless you really flatten the healthcare curve or crush the virus 100%, it's just like a cancer. One cell left is too many because it propagates. And every time somebody goes from one place to another, not showing any symptoms of the disease, they are indeed infecting others. And those people infect more people. It's easy to go into lockdown. I can say it. Does it affect us? You bet. Are we happy with it? No way. But it works. It works unusually well. We are not in New York City overburdening our healthcare system. It would be nice, however, if we could indeed free up those beds and say that we've saved more people. Unfortunately, when you become ill, it's almost too late to save those folks with ventilators. It no longer matters. Everyone should own a pulse oximeter. I have been saying it for weeks now. At least then you'll know if you've got the virus and if it's affecting the oxygenation of your blood system. So we don't want to recreate the 30s, and it looks like the Republicans today are hell-bent on recreating the 30s and the deep depression that followed. We don't have to do it if we act smart, if we open up when we know the statistics of our populations, when we know how many are infected, who they've seen, and not let them work. We can do that, and we can reconfigure workspaces, whether it's in the factory or it's in the office, to accommodate flexible shifts of people who are practicing social distancing and wearing masks. Takes money, but we can do it. It takes more money if we do it wrong. Doing it right the first time is always appropriate because it costs less in the long run, less economically, less lives lost. So I appeal to everyone who espouses the Republican ideology. Let's learn from history. We don't want to repeat a Hoover moment. Let's learn and make better choices so that we can avoid the depression of the 30s and we can avoid deaths of despair and more deaths from this virus. We've got to be nimble and flexible in our thinking. And I'm not sure how I can convince millions who believe in the Republican philosophy of small government and tariffs and isolation and deregulation that this is not appropriate at this time. Being nimble is. Our pharmaceutical industry and our chemical and biochemical laboratories are cooperating and collaborating on a global level. And we'll have to do that in the future as well. Yes, a vaccine will come one day, and so will a cure, but it may be too late for hundreds of thousands who will have died needlessly. We now know that our supply chains don't work. We know what needs to be rebuilt in this country. We've seen the fissures, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's connectedness. We know it and we see it. It will provide new jobs for a new way of doing business. And we'll get there, I have no doubt. But we do have to change hearts and minds. It's not small government that's going to help us out. It's not giving to the wealthy and forgetting the poor and the middle class. Only a strong infrastructure, a strong people with that old can-do spirit can rise up and come up with the solutions to resolve all our problems. We did it before. We can do it again. But we can't do it if 50% of the country believes in the Republican mantra. Didn't work in the 30s. It's not going to work today either. You can bet on it, just like I bet on the fact that I'll be here next week. So, hey, I'm looking for suggestions of how do we change the Republican ideology before too many more people perish with this disease or diseases of despair. And how do we do it before we spend more money needlessly? Money should be planned how it's spent so that it has the biggest bang for our buck. Think about it, folks, and write me at the Voice of Joyce at earthling.net. Together, we can solve all our problems. We haven't been able to say, I can't do it yet. That never was in our lexicon. We can do it. We just need the right mindset and the right way to do business. Not in the old way, but in the new way. Making way for COVID-19 and making way for less fossil fuels. Thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed day, everyone, and help me help you understand that it's not us we're fighting against. It's a virus, and it's global, and it's pandemic, and it's not a one-off. It likes its new host. So it's coming back, and it'll be with us for generations. Let's be smart. It's our choice. Let's write our own history, a history of connectedness and a history of economic sustainability. Thank you for listening, and see you next week. God bless.